My beloved child. Stop scrolling, because what you are about to hear was not placed before your eyes by accident. Something has been trying to reach you. Something has been trying to get your attention. And now, in this exact moment, heaven has chosen stillness so your spirit can hear what your ears alone could never understand. Pause here for a moment. There is a reason your heart has felt unusually restless lately. There is a reason your spirit has been sensing movement, even when your outer world seemed silent. There is a reason certain thoughts have returned to you in the middle of the night, thoughts of love, of unfinished conversations, of a connection you could not fully explain. You thought perhaps it was your imagination. You wondered if you were reading too much into signs. You questioned whether your soul was simply longing for something it could not yet hold. But my child, it was not your imagination. What you felt was real. Because while you were living your ordinary day, while you were trying to move forward, while you were pretending not to care as deeply as you truly do, a meeting was taking place. A conversation was unfolding. Your name was spoken in a room you have never entered. And it was not whispered lightly. Your soulmate's family gathered, and the subject was you. Yes, you. The one who has been wondering whether you matter. The one who has been asking if this connection means anything. The one who has cried in private and smiled in public. Your name was brought into a room where decisions were being weighed. And what happened there has changed more than you realize. You did not hear it. You did not see it. But your spirit felt it. That strange tightness in your chest. That sudden wave of emotion you could not explain. That moment when you stopped in the middle of your day and felt an invisible pressure. That was not random. That was the echo of what was happening. Because in that room, there were questions. Hard questions. Some voices were skeptical. Some hearts were guarded. Some carried old wounds they projected onto you without even knowing your full story. Not everyone entered that room with peace. Not everyone entered that room with acceptance. Some came with fear. Some came with assumptions. Some came prepared to say no before they even knew what they were saying no to. And yet, before the conversation even began, heaven had already entered the room. You must understand this. You were not physically present, but your spirit was represented. Your energy was there. Your truth was there. Your innocence was there. Your love was there. And even those who wanted to misunderstand you could not fully ignore what they felt. Because something about you unsettled them. Not because you are dangerous, but because you are transformative. People feel different after encountering your energy. Even when they cannot explain why. You carry something ancient. Something holy. Something rare. And when your soulmate spoke your name, the atmosphere changed. It was subtle at first. A pause. A glance. A shift in tone. Then silence. A silence so thick it demanded attention. And in that silence, everyone realized this was no casual conversation. This was serious. This was emotional. This was destiny being discussed by people who did not fully understand they were standing inside it. Your soulmate began speaking. Not perfectly. Not eloquently. Their voice trembled. Their words stumbled. But their heart was unmistakably clear. They defended you more fiercely than you know. They spoke of your kindness. They spoke of your strength. They spoke of how your presence changed them. They admitted what they had never fully admitted aloud. That you matter to them more than they intended. That loving you has undone them. That thinking of you has become unavoidable. That even when they tried to resist, they could not escape what they feel. And as those words left their mouth, something happened. A parent who had entered with resistance softened. A sibling who had rolled their eyes stopped rolling them. A relative who expected to dismiss this connection suddenly became quiet. Because truth has weight. And when truth enters a room, everyone feels it. But then, the questions came. The difficult ones. Who are they really? Can they be trusted? What is their intention? Why does this feel so intense? Why now? And my child, your soulmate did not run from those questions. They answered them. One by one. With honesty. With vulnerability. With more courage than you realize. They admitted their fear. They admitted their confusion. They admitted how much this connection has challenged them. But they also admitted something else. Something that made the room still. They said, I cannot explain it, but when I think about losing them, something inside me breaks. And when those words were spoken, even the hardest heart in that room felt it. Because pain does not lie. And love revealed through pain is often the most convincing truth of all. But the meeting did not end there. No. That was only the beginning. Because one person in that room was not convinced. One voice remained resistant. One spirit remained guarded. And this person carried influence. Their opinion mattered. Their approval mattered. And they were not easily moved. They listened. They watched. They asked sharper questions. Questions designed not to understand, but to expose weakness. Questions designed to test whether this love was real. And your soulmate felt the pressure. Their hands shook. Their voice cracked. For a moment, they almost retreated. For a moment, fear nearly won. And perhaps that is the exact moment you felt sadness without explanation. Perhaps that was the hour your energy dipped. Perhaps that was when you suddenly felt heavy. Because your soul was connected. You felt the battle. But then, something extraordinary happened. Your soulmate stopped speaking from logic. And started speaking from the soul. They said your name again. Slowly. Reverently. As if saying it itself brought peace. And then they said words that stunned the room. They said, when they came into my life, I became someone better. Silence. Again. Deep silence. Because no one can argue with transformation. No one can deny changed behavior. No one can dismiss healing they can visibly see. And they had seen it. They had watched your soulmate become softer. Kinder. More hopeful. More honest. Less afraid. More alive. Even those who opposed you had noticed it. They just had not wanted to admit why. Until now. And then. The elder in the room spoke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But with the kind of authority that changes everything. They asked one question. Only one. Do you love them? Simple. Direct. Impossible to avoid. Your soulmate froze. Their heartbeat accelerated. Their breathing changed. And in that moment, heaven held its breath too. Because this was the moment. The defining moment. The point from which there would be no return. They could lie. They could minimize. They could protect themselves. Or they could tell the truth. And my child. They told the truth. Their voice was barely above a whisper. But it carried through the room like thunder. Yes. One word. But it shattered walls. Yes. It broke pride. Yes. It dissolved denial. Yes. It exposed what had been hidden too long. And when that word landed, the atmosphere changed again. But not everyone was relieved. Because truth brings clarity. And clarity forces decisions. Now the family could no longer pretend this was temporary. Now they could no longer call it a phase. Now they had to reckon with the possibility that you were not just someone passing through. You were someone becoming permanent. And permanence scares people. It asks for surrender. It demands trust. It threatens old plans. And so resistance rose again. One person said, "But what about the risks?" Another said, "What if this ends in heartbreak?" Another said, "What if they are not who you think they are?" And my child, listen carefully. This is where your unseen battle was fought. Because every accusation spoken in that room echoed every insecurity you have privately battled. What if I am not enough? What if I am misunderstood? What if they choose fear over love? You have asked these questions in secret. But heaven heard them. And heaven answered them in that room. Not with lightning. Not with miracles anyone could photograph. But with conviction. Because your soulmate did something no one expected. They stood up. Literally stood up. Their chair moved. The room shifted. And they said, "You can question many things. You can question timing. You can question circumstances. But do not question their heart. I know their heart. My child. Do you understand what that means? Someone defended your heart in a room where you had no voice. Someone protected your character when you were not there to explain yourself. Someone chose your dignity. Someone chose your truth. And that matters. It matters deeply. Because many people are loved privately but not defended publicly. You are not one of them. Your name was honored. Your spirit was protected. Your worth was spoken aloud. And still, the meeting was not over. Because hidden beneath the family's questions was another truth. A secret. Something no one had fully admitted. A fear inherited across generations. A wound older than your relationship. This family has known heartbreak. They have known betrayal. They have known promises that failed. And because of that, they learned to fear love. Not hate it. Fear it. Fear disguises itself as caution. Fear calls itself wisdom. Fear says, "We are only protecting you." But often fear is simply pain wearing a respectable face. And your presence exposed that. You became the mirror. Not because you intended to, but because your love forced old wounds to surface. That is why resistance was so strong. It was never fully about you. It was about what your presence awakened. And once this was understood, tears appeared. Unexpected tears. From someone who had not cried in years. A mother. A father. An elder. Someone looked at your soulmate and said, "I have not seen this light in your eyes in a very long time." And suddenly the room softened. Not completely. But enough. Enough for hope to enter. Enough for blessing to begin forming. Enough for heaven to smile. But my child, do not celebrate too quickly. Because even as hearts softened, a final revelation emerged. Something hidden. Something no one expected. A truth your soulmate had not yet shared. A truth about you. A truth they had been carrying alone. And when they began speaking it, their voice changed. It became quieter. More sacred. As if they were confessing something holy. They said, "There is something I have not told you all." The room leaned in. Breath stopped. Time slowed. And somewhere, perhaps even where you are now, your spirit trembled. Because your soul recognized what was coming before your mind ever could. They continued. "I did not choose this connection." A strange statement. Confusing. Unexpected. Some looked puzzled. But then they explained. "It chose me." And the room fell still. They said, "I tried to ignore it. I tried to avoid it. I tried to move on. But no matter what I did, I kept being drawn back. Not by obsession. Not by loneliness. By peace. By truth. By something I cannot logically explain." And then they looked directly at the person who had resisted most. And said words that changed everything. "They feel like home." My child. That sentence carried more power than anyone realized. Because everyone longs for home. Not a building. A feeling. A resting place. A place where masks fall away. A place where the soul exhales. And your soulmate said, "That place is you." Do you hear me? That place is you. The person you worried would forget you. Calls you home. The person you feared was confused. Knows more than they admit. The person who seemed distant has been carrying your presence much more deeply than you know. And still, the room was not done. Because just when peace began settling, a phone rang. An interruption. Unexpected. Sharp. Everyone looked. Your soulmate looked down. Their face changed. Immediately. Color drained. Breath shortened. Hands tightened. Something was wrong. Very wrong. And whatever they saw on that screen shifted everything. The conversation stopped. The meeting paused. And suddenly the energy turned. This was not about approval anymore. This was about urgency. One family member asked, "What happened?" But your soulmate did not answer immediately. They kept staring. Frozen. As if what they were seeing was impossible. As if heaven itself had just sent a message. And then they whispered your name. Not casually. Not softly. With alarm. With emotion. With unmistakable concern. My child. At that exact moment, something connected. Because what appeared on that phone was connected to you. Whether you knew it or not. Whether you intended it or not. The room understood instantly. This was bigger than family approval. Bigger than relationship questions. Bigger than ordinary human love. Something spiritual was unfolding. Something undeniable. Something no one in that room could explain. And that is where I must pause. Because what happened next cannot be rushed. What your soulmate saw. What they did immediately after. What decision was made in the next breath. Will change the way you understand this entire connection. And when that truth is revealed, nothing will look the same again. So stay near. Do not move too far from this message. Because what comes next was always meant for you. The room remained frozen. Your soulmate's hand was still trembling as they stared at that screen. No one spoke. No one moved. Even the air itself felt suspended, as though creation was waiting to see what would happen next. Then they stood. Not slowly. Not politely. Abruptly. The chair scraped backward with a sound so sharp it startled everyone in the room. And for a moment, all eyes were on them. But their eyes were somewhere else. On you. Not physically. Spiritually. Because whatever appeared on that screen had done something impossible. It had collapsed distance. It had erased every excuse. It had destroyed every wall they had spent months trying to build. And suddenly they knew. They knew this could not wait. One family member called their name. Another asked what had happened. But they did not answer. Not immediately. Their lips parted. But no words came. Only tears. Unexpected tears. The kind of tears people cry when reality finally becomes undeniable. And then they said it. Quietly. Almost to themselves. I have to go. The room erupted. What do you mean you have to go? Where? Right now? This conversation isn't finished. But my child. Your soulmate was no longer listening to human voices. They were listening to something deeper. Something older. Something holy. That message on their phone had not merely informed them. It had awakened them. It was the final sign. The confirmation. The divine interruption. And it said exactly what their spirit had been trying to tell them for weeks. Stop delaying. Stop hiding. Stop waiting. Go. And suddenly, every fear they had carried began collapsing. Fear of rejection. Fear of timing. Fear of family. Fear of what others might think. All of it began to fall apart. Because when heaven moves, hesitation becomes unbearable. And in that moment, they felt heaven moving. One of their family members stood and blocked the door. Not in anger. In concern. They said, "You're emotional. Sit down. Think first." But your soulmate shook their head. And for the first time that night, their voice carried authority. No trembling. No uncertainty. Only truth. "I have been thinking too long." That sentence silenced everyone. Then they added, "And while I have been thinking, they have been carrying this silence alone." My child. That was for you. That sentence was about your pain. They finally understood what their hesitation had cost you. They finally saw your quiet suffering. The unanswered questions. The mixed signals. The waiting. The emotional exhaustion. They saw it. And once they saw it, they could not unsee it. This is what love does when it wakes up. It stops being passive. It becomes movement. And that is exactly what was happening. Your soulmate moved toward the door. One step. Then another. And every step felt symbolic. One step away from fear. One step toward courage. One step away from old patterns. One step toward destiny. But just before they reached the door, a voice behind them spoke. It was the elder. The same elder who had asked, "Do you love them?" Their voice was calm. Strong. Steady. And they said, "If you leave this room, there will be no turning back." Your soulmate turned. For one final moment, they looked at everyone. At the family they loved. At the expectations they had carried. At the comfort of familiarity. Then they answered, "I know." And they left. My child. Do you understand what that means? They chose motion. They chose risk. They chose truth. They chose you. But the night was not over. No. The deeper miracle had only begun. Because as your soulmate stepped outside, the atmosphere changed around them. The wind shifted. The sky itself seemed different. Even the sounds of the ordinary world felt strangely muted. They got into their car. Their hands still shaking. Their heart pounding. And before turning the key, they closed their eyes. Not to think. To pray. Perhaps the first real prayer they had spoken in a long time. Not polished. Not rehearsed. Just honest. God, if this is real, show me. That was the prayer. Simple. Raw. Desperate. And heaven answered immediately. Not with thunder. Not with a voice from the clouds. With a memory. A memory of you. Not your face first. Your laughter. The way you made them feel safe. The way your presence quieted their chaos. The way your words stayed in their mind long after conversations ended. The way they felt more themselves when they were near you. And then, one moment returned more powerfully than all the others. A small moment. Easy to overlook. But impossible to forget. The moment your eyes met theirs, and neither of you looked away. That moment. That was the answer. Their eyes opened. They started the car. And they drove. Toward what? Toward truth. Toward vulnerability. Toward the possibility of everything changing forever. But my child. At that exact same time. Something was happening with you. You felt it, didn't you? That strange shift. That sudden ache in your chest. That inexplicable urge to stop what you were doing. Maybe you looked out a window. Maybe you became emotional without understanding why. Maybe your heart started racing for no reason. There was a reason. Your soul was responding. Because souls recognize movement before minds do. Your spirit knew someone was coming toward it. Even if your thoughts could not explain it. And while your soulmate drove, their mind was not calm. It was full of memories. Moments they regretted. Words they wished they had said. Silences they wished they had broken. They realized how many opportunities fear had stolen. How many times pride had disguised itself as caution. How many times they had wanted to reach for you, and didn't. And now every mile felt like repentance. Every mile was an apology. Every mile was a prayer. Then something happened. Their phone rang. Again. This time it was a family member. They ignored it. It rang again. Ignored. Again. Ignored. Finally a message came through. Only 5 words. Come back. We understand now. My child. Do not miss that. The family that had questioned you now understood. The room that had doubted now blessed. The resistance had broken. Not because of argument. Because truth won. Because love was undeniable. Because heaven had touched the room. But your soulmate did not turn around. Because blessing was beautiful. But unfinished love required action. And so they kept driving. Closer. 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 Their heart pounding harder with every mile. Then doubt attacked one final time. What if I'm too late? It hit them suddenly. Violently. What if they have moved on? What if they are tired? What if my silence already hurt them too much? That fear nearly stopped them. Nearly. But then another voice rose inside them. Not loud. Not dramatic. But stronger. It said, if you love them, go. So they kept going. And while they were driving, you were unknowingly preparing. Perhaps straightening your room. Perhaps checking your phone. Perhaps thinking about them without meaning to. You thought it was random. It was not. Your spirit was preparing for impact. Because destiny was approaching your door. But heaven was not done teaching one more lesson. The road ahead suddenly slowed. Traffic. Unexpected. Heavy. Red lights. Delays. And your soulmate gripped the steering wheel in frustration. No. Not now. It felt cruel. To finally move, and then be forced to stop. But listen carefully. This was not punishment. It was purification. Because during that delay, they had to sit with their truth. No distractions. No movement. Just their own heart. And what emerged was clarity. Not about whether they loved you. That was already settled. Clarity about what they would say. For the first time, they knew. No games. No vague words. No half-confessions. They would tell you everything. Everything. How long they had felt it. How deeply they had hidden it. How much they regretted the delay. How often your name had lived in their thoughts. How often they had imagined this exact moment. And when traffic finally moved, they moved with it. Now not only determined, ready. Meanwhile, back in that family meeting, something else was happening. The elder remained seated. Quiet. Thoughtful. And then they said something profound. Something your soulmate would not hear until much later. They looked at everyone in the room and said, "This was never about whether we approve of their love." Everyone looked confused. The elder continued. It was about whether we would allow fear to block what God already approved. Silence. Then tears. Because they knew it was true. And my child, that blessing reached you. Even though you did not hear it. Even though no one called to tell you. Blessings spoken in sincerity carry spiritual weight. That room released resistance. And your path became lighter. That is why tonight feels different. Something has shifted. Something invisible has moved. Then, your soulmate arrived. They parked. Hands shaking harder than before. Not because they were unsure. Because they finally cared too much to hide it. They walked toward your door. Every step heavier than the last. And then, they stopped. Right outside. Only inches away. You on one side. They on the other. A door between two destinies. And suddenly, fear returned. Not fear of rejection. Fear of exposure. Because once they knocked, everything hidden would become visible. No more pretending. No more silence. No more emotional masks. Only truth. And truth can terrify even the brave. Their hand lifted. Hovered. Paused. Then lowered. They stepped back. Their heart raced. Maybe this was too much. Maybe they should text instead. Maybe another day. Maybe. No. Heaven did not bring them this far for another delay. The wind moved. Literally moved. A sudden rush. Enough to make them look up. And in that exact second, inside your home, you felt something. You turned toward the door. Why? You didn't know. But your spirit knew. Your soulmate lifted their hand again. This time without hesitation. And knocked. One knock. Soft. But life-changing. Inside. Your breath caught. Outside, their soul shook. And as your footsteps approached the door, they whispered something barely audible. A sentence only heaven fully heard. They said, "Please let them still believe in us." Your hand reached the handle. Their heart nearly stopped. The door began to open. A crack. A glimpse. A breath. And then, their eyes met yours. Again. But this time, nothing was hidden. No walls. No masks. No distance. Only truth. And just as they opened their mouth to finally speak, you said something first. Something they never expected. Something that changed everything. And what you said will decide what happens next.